Bigfoot Classified contains content that is graphic in nature, and listener discretion is advised. Bigfoot Classified relies largely on news documents, eyewitness accounts, press conferences, and interviews. Every episode is produced with respect to the victims, families, and communities involved. Some of the interviews, quotes, and broadcasts have been recreated. Numerous hours of research have been done regarding these stories. And if you have a theory, question, or feel that we've missed something, we encourage you to visit BigfootClassified.com. Bigfoot, also commonly referred to as Sasquatch, is a purported ape-like creature said to inhabit the forests of North America. This is Bigfoot Classified.
In the late 1990s and early 2000s, a science teacher by the name of Tom Powell heard about a 7.5-foot tall burn victim who had multiple burns on hands, feet, legs, and body, some second and third degree burns, according to an anonymous government worker who alerted the Bigfoot Field Research Organization, BFRO. The Battle Mountain Complex fire is said to have started on August 6, 1999, when Battle Mountain, Nevada, erupted into several range fires. According to an unnamed government worker, a Bigfoot was harmed in the fire. Although the claim was later denied, Tom set out on a mission to prove the incident occurred and was part of a wider, more sinister cover-up. This is the case of Bigfoot on Battle Mountain. The state of Nevada is not new to the world of conspiracy, cover-ups, and strange happenings. Home to Area 51, the infamous secretive test and training range, hounded by theories of out-of-this-world going-ons. But aliens may not have been the only thing lurking in the shadows of the Silver State. On August 5th, 1999, Battle Mountain, Nevada exploded into several range fires started by lightning strikes, as convective thunderstorms formed in the hot, dry August air over Battle Mountain, Nevada. This area is a mining district riddled with abandoned mining tunnels and shafts. The juniper and scrubby sagebrush of the mountainous terrain around Battle Mountain exploded into several fires in what would eventually be known as the Battle Mountain Complex Fire. Additional resources were sent in to assist in putting out hundreds of lightning-sparked fires that had scorched an estimated 300 square miles of range area in northern Nevada, with over 610 firefighters being sent to the area in a desperate attempt to control the spread of the blaze. While concentrating their efforts on inhabited areas, firefighters were forced to leave some fires unattended in remote northeastern and north-central Nevada. The fire consumed 70,000 to 180,000 acres of land. Habitats and wildlife were destroyed. And by early afternoon on August 7th, the force of the blaze brought out a mysterious creature, desperately trying to save itself. Between 20 and 30 firefighters were on the scene to witness the injured creature wandering in front of them. A witness would later describe how it felt like whatever it was wanted their attention. It wanted their help. The firefighters circled around the creature, but a witness would later say that their precautions weren't necessary. The witness would recount how it seemed to realize that he was captured, and that he just gave up. The muscular creature, standing at around 7.5 feet tall, was injured badly. Burns covered its body, its hair was singed, and it emitted an odd smell, described as equine-like. The creature was witnessed staggering around by up to 30 people, though accounts of the incidents are far and few. It was clear, though, whatever it was on the brink of death. The medics hooked it up to an IV and worked together to get it laid on a spine board in order to transport it. The creature hung over the edge of the board. Its 7-foot stature threatened to overwhelm the plastic underneath. By this point, news of the blaze was spreading, and officials didn't want a marked ambulance leaving the area for fear of the word spreading that one of the fire crew had died trying to slow the flames. The fire crew sprang into action, laying the creature on the ground. Across its hands, feet, legs, face, pretty much everywhere was severe burning. The creature was hot to the touch. At first, the patient was spread out on the ground. He suffered severe burns to his hands, feet, legs, and trunk, in addition to a significant amount of singed hair. The fire crew, on site, decided to call for help from a veterinarian and a doctor to try and save the creature. The medics were shocked at what they saw. Not a human, ape, or bear, but something resembling the three, a Sasquatch. After surveying the scene before him, the veterinarian handed over to the medic, declaring that the creature before them was too human-like for him to be able to confidently treat. But that's not an accurate representation of the creature, who is anything but human. The tall creature was described as having a face, not like man or ape, but a mix of them both. Hair covering its whole body except the chest and palms, and having the sexual characteristics of those of an uncircumcised male. The creature had 5-fingered hands with an opposable thumb which measured around 1.5 times the size of a human hand. Its nails were heavier and thicker, and the medic noted that one of its nails was damaged. The creature was also covered in brown hair, which displayed no obvious signs of matting. It had big human-like lips, and its forehead was described as being thick-boned. It had ears not too dissimilar to humans, but they were stretched tight upon its head with no dangling earlobes. It was strong-jawed with brown beady eyes, and for its head, it was described by a witness as being around twice as large as a human head. Whatever the creature was, it was not human, but it shared many human qualities. Enough that the vet stepped aside. Taking over, the doctor gave the creature Demerol and morphine administered through an IV after a cut down was performed, trying to keep him alive while at the scene. The creature moaned, groaned, and grumbled in pain while receiving care for its injuries and efforts to maintain its life. A witness, who was only 3 feet away from the patient, reported hearing bowel sounds, but no vocalizations resembling any known language were heard. The patient was calmed by patting and petting, which he responded to. The witness would later say how the creature responded well to a young Native American woman who had been treating it since the creature staggered their way. It's worth noting that an ape wouldn't have responded this way. While looking like an animal, the creature responded better to human comforting touches. It enjoyed being comforted while in pain. While the creature couldn't communicate with the crew trying to save him, a witness, who was only 3 feet away from the patient, did hear sounds. The medics worked together to get the injured creature laid on the spine board in order to transport it. The crew decided to opt for a standard ambulance stretcher instead in order to transport it, but even then the large creature overwhelmed it. Instead of being taken away in an ambulance, the creature was taken from the scene in the back of the utility vehicle. A witness on the scene claimed that if an ambulance had arrived, the locals and media would have been alerted to the fact that a firefighter had been hurt. Little did they know exactly what was lying in that vehicle, though. So it was decided that a plain van would be a better option to transport the creature, as it wouldn't be followed by anyone. 3 hours was thought to have passed between the initial sighting and the extraction. The team that treated the creature were told that it was being transported to a local hospital, but they weren't told where. In fact, days after the incident, they couldn't find any trace of evidence as to where the creature had gone. Of course, the team privy to the details of the event knew that if an animal, human, whatever it was, went to a hospital, it would be a media frenzy. But there was nothing. Where had the creature gone? The whole incident was to be covered up. Nobody could know what was seen that August 7th. The team involved in the creature's care and extraction were made to sign an affidavit under the Department of Interior and the U.S. Forest Service, which declared the whole affair as confidential under penalty of felony arrest and jail time. further threats were made to the team, so that if they did speak out, they would lose their retirement, benefits, and their service ranking. So, that was that. Nobody could talk about it. Nobody would know. Like in so many of the other alleged Bigfoot sightings, a government entity swooped in to shut it down. But this time, like in so many others, a whistleblower emerged from the not-so-metaphorical Battle Mountain ashes. A letter written just hours after the incident on Battle Mountain was sent into the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO, by a government employee who claimed to have witnessed a Sasquatch-like creature walking towards a group of wildland firefighters. The letter reads,
I observed an animal wounded by fire, moving on all fours, not like a bear, more like an ape. Firefighters captured the animal and contacted the local vet and medical doctor, U.S. Department of Fish and Wildlife, Department of Interior, and Bureau of Land Management are all on the scene. Animal tranquilized and moved to an unknown location. Those at the scene are told not to talk about what they saw. Animal approximately 7.5 feet long, tall, human-like, arms and legs, face not like a man or ape, but mixed between. Genitalia, male, uncircumcised and human-like. Hair covering most of the body except chest. Chest has hair but sparse. Hands with sparse hair, palms bare, with 5 digits, with human opposition of thumb and 5th digit. Regarding speech, it attempted to communicate with caregivers once it realized they were attempting to care for it. Multiple burns to hands, feet, legs, and body, some 2nd and 3rd degree burns. Using the rule of 9s, approximately 45% of body with burns. Doctor and vet worked together providing care and moved it to an unknown location locally. This notice is given in violation of orders given by BLM, DOI, and DF&W. Witnesses numbered in the area of 20 to 25. Word is out in the government agencies and among the firefighters since an MD was called out. Many thought a firefighter was injured. Please note that I am a government employee of one of the listed agencies fighting brush fire in the wilderness area of Nevada. Large-scale fire, approximately 70,000 acres burned, and under orders not to disclose information. I believe a cover-up is in the making. People need to know. The animal needs to be kept alive and studied and released in protected area.
Now, at this point, the news of the range fires had not spread. The BFRO received the tip but could not confirm that a fire in that area had taken place until 2 days later when the first coverage of the blaze appeared in the press. A USFS event management situation report of the blaze was released. With 13 different fires, it is a Type 2 incident, with Type 1 being the largest. Fuels made of juniper and pinyon pine are demonstrating some controllability issues. Private ranches, communication hubs, heritage sites, and wildlife habitat are all currently under threat, the report said. So, their anonymous tip had known of the fire before it was able to be confirmed. Their information was good so far, so they decided to pursue it. But there was an issue. The BFRO attempted to contact the anonymous witness multiple times through email, but received no response. After 10 days since their initial tip to the BFRO, the organization was ready to let it go as a hoax. That was until a BFRO investigator received a call that would change everything. This is a recreation of that report by BFRO investigator Doug.
Much to my surprise, tonight, August 19th, 1990, at about 9 p.m., the reporting party of the Battle Mountain incident called me. I had been hopeful that he would call after I emailed him, but today was the 10th day, and tonight or tomorrow I was going to post that I had had no contact, pretty much ending any further concern over the Battle Mountain thing. Tonight, I talked with the gentleman for about 70 minutes. Although he is maintaining strict anonymity, I was able to put together a bit of a profile of the individual. This fellow, whom I will give the pseudonym John, is a male, full-time worker for a federal agency. Currently, he is involved in the joint firefighting efforts in Nevada. He has extensive EMT training and experience. He says that, until this incident, he had seen it all in firefighting, and these days he stays mostly in the truck manning the radio. He is friendly but not effusive. He is intelligent, likable, and fairly observant, but he isn't outstandingly articulate. He is a matter-of-fact, low-key, seen-it-all kind of character. His regular duties may be in personnel, as he mentioned that tomorrow he would be seeing the MD involved with this incident, about other matters regarding firefighting crews. It was obvious during our conversation that he was very tired. Our talk ended with John saying that he had to get to bed to get some rest. Approximately 20 people were in the immediate vicinity of the incident. All were debriefed and informed in no uncertain terms that this incident was not to be discussed. There has not been a word about the incident at the BLM Fire HQ. He is very concerned about keeping his job and says he would not look forward to having a lie detector test. He created an email address exclusively for reporting the incident. Although I had originally encouraged him to call me collect, this lengthy call was on him so he could maintain absolute privacy. He is reporting this incident because he believes the information should get out. We agreed in any future communications to use the term patient to describe the Sasquatch. I'll use that here. The incident happened in the early afternoon. About 20 firefighters were directly involved. The injured patient apparently wandered within sight of the fire crew and was then surrounded by the firefighters. The patient seemed to know that he was captured because he soon gave up. John mentioned this several times. He just gave up. The patient sat down on his buttocks, giving no evidence of a will to resist, like a dog gives up and then you could do anything with it. The patient was laid out on the ground at first. His injuries were rather serious, including burns to the hands, feet, legs, and trunk, as well as much singed hair. It didn't take long for medical services to get on the scene. The attending medical team included the regular MD for the fire crews, a vet that John didn't recognize, and one or more paramedics. The vet was taken aback when working with a creature so human-like, and is reported to have allowed the physician to do most of the work. At some point, Demerol and morphine were administered. The patient was placed on a spine board which was too small. He was then placed on a regular ambulance stretcher. The sides were left down because part of the body hung over too far. The feet hung off the end. A cut-down was performed to obtain an intravenous line, and fluids were administered, lactated ringers and DSW. No physical restraints of any sort were necessary upon the patient at any time. He either didn't or couldn't make any effort to resist. No firearms were on the scene, although self-defense was possible using rakes, shovels, and fire axes. During the treatment of his wounds and the efforts at life support, the patient communicated with moans, groans, and grumbling. Bowel sounds were heard by John, who was as close as 3 feet from the patient. No language-like vocalizations were heard. The patient responded to touch, specifically patting and stroking to calm him. You're not going to find an ape or monkey responding the same way. 2 or 3 times, John mentioned that the patient was especially responsive to a young Native American woman who started ministering to him right from the very beginning. The patient was removed from the scene on the back of a utility truck, not in the ambulance. John said that the ambulance would have alerted townsfolk and possibly news reporters, thinking that a firefighter had been injured. No one would follow a nondescript van. The total time from initial sighting to extraction was estimated at 3 hours. There was no urination, defecation, or vomit at the scene. The patient did not eat anything during that time. Serum and blood were leaking from the burned areas of the body. The area of the arm on which the cut-down was performed was shaved. The hair probably fell to the ground. There was significant blood from the cut-down site and the subsequent insertion of a venous line, and some of that blood dripped onto the ground. No one knows where the patient was taken. No video cameras were on the scene to film any aspect of the incident. The fire commander was present. He had a camera, and he did record what he saw. The patient is described as being about 7 feet tall, give or take a few inches. John does not give a weight estimate. Most of the body is covered by brownish hair about 2 inches in length. No gray hairs are evident. There are no mats noted in the coat. There is an odor about the patient. It is not an especially obnoxious odor. John calls it a natural odor, but he had a hard time describing it. He said it was similar to a strong equine odor. The head is not sloped. The forehead is very boned, the lips large but human-like. The ears human-like and tight to the head, with the earlobe attached, not dangling. The teeth were yellow, but he couldn't comment on the wear. The patient is strong-jawed. He could not remember the color of the eyes, but thought they might be brown. The head is about 2 times the size of a human head. There is hair on the face, but not on the palms or soles of the feet. There is great bulk to the patient, but there is no fat. He said this observation and the form of the body did not match with the film with the one running in the woods. He called that film a probable hoax. The hands are about 1.5 times a human hand, 5 fingers with opposable thumbs. The fingernails are thicker and heavier, and one was chipped. The feet are large, 5 toes on each foot, no evidence of fractures, injuries, arthritis, or deformation. The sexual features are those of an uncircumcised male, matching the human anatomy. John made the comment several times that these are not monkey or ape features. He felt he was in the presence of a very human creature. John sounded exhausted in our interview. That's understandable given his long stint on the fire line. He gave me much of the fundamental information above, but the rest came from my inquiries. He answered all my inquiries except one. When did this happen? He stammered and guessed early afternoon. Long days on the fire made morning and afternoon melt together unnoticed. He wasn't evasive and always had an answer, but he searched for the appropriate term. He spoke of the incident without enthusiasm, like an old federal worker. He mentioned that he had goosebumps 2 or 3 times while answering my inquiries. I've heard this from trustworthy witnesses, so I don't think it's a scam. Please share your thoughts on goosebumps. You've all heard it. Some of the medical material he presented rang false, e.g. IV line for cross-matching blood if necessary, but he may have been trying to impress me as a long-time EMT. Nothing in this interview contradicts his earlier account, although he didn't offer much fresh information until questioned. I asked him twice to elaborate on the report's claim that the patient tried to speak with caretakers. He reported only moans, groans, and grumbling were audible. I asked him for hand signals and got a vague no. John lacks Bigfoot knowledge. He mentioned the Patterson film and a few other things, but he is no expert. I've offered to talk to additional witnesses. I'll accept payphone collect calls. If more witnesses are gathered, I'll see him. John fears for his job and won't tell anyone he contacted us. I can email him any ideas, he said. He's emailing me from a website, perhaps the same one that Thorne Powell gave us, where I can track fire activity. We got along well. Future communication is possible. I instructed him to return to the scene and looked for the shaved arm's hair or blood. He has access to the area but likely won't return until after the fires are under control. Some dew may have stuck the hair to the ground, but it's been dry.
So, after this initial conversation with John, Doug had asked him if he still had access to the site that the creature was found. He told him he did, but as you heard, the fire was still not under control, and to return to the site was dangerous in the very least. Not to mention, John, returning, would raise alerts of those trying to cover up the whole affair. On the 26th of September, Doug updated his curators at the BFRO.
I have a bit more on the Battle Mountain thing. I received a short email from Marty using his anonymous website. He was responding to my inquiry on whether we had been able to retrieve blood or hair samples. His entire message is, "Dozer has torn area up. Nothing left. Word is there is still life. Location unknown. Believe within a couple of 100 miles. Later, John."
This is where things take an unfortunate turn for our anonymous informant. After the last email to Doug, he and the BFRO decided that the story of the Dozer was too convenient. All evidence gone, and a tidy way for John to tidy up his story without having to provide actual proof of his claims. The BFRO dismissed John as a hoax and moved on, and the story was quickly forgotten. But the 1999 incident is not the only report of Sasquatch roaming around the Battle Mountain area. Jordan Williams encountered a curious Sasquatch in Battle Mountain. It happened while he was driving home from his mining job in Crescent Valley, Nevada, near Battle Mountain. Williams was driving home alone in his SUV, and at this point, he was about 5 hours away. He ran out of gas 7 miles from a gas station. His battery died, and when the battery died, the window was down and unrollable. Jordan couldn't get any emergency services to answer his phone calls because he was so far away. It was hopeless. Williams was stranded on a desert highway in 17-degree weather. There are no trees in the desert, only knee-high sagebrush and tumbleweeds, which makes his encounter interesting because it's commonly believed the Sasquatch needs a timbered forest to exist. There are many reports of desert encounters, but few since the 1970s. When temperatures drop that low, nothing is colder than a car's interior. The seats and metal burn to the touch. Williams was from Southern California and hadn't been in the area long. So, he was unprepared with proper clothing, only a t-shirt, sweater, and blanket. At 2 a.m., he was startled awake. He saw a face in the car's passenger window. Williams stared at a Bigfoot for 10 seconds. The creature's face was well lit by his phone. Williams, hypothermic after 6 hours in 17-degree weather, couldn't respond coherently. His window down Bigfoot encounter didn't register. Williams said he knew he was losing it. He lit up a cigarette and looked over at the window again, but the Bigfoot is gone. Jordan realizes he could be hallucinating and imagining the Bigfoot was at his window. He told his wife he was seeing things and needs to leave. Williams was shivering, but coping with hypothermia, he didn't realize it. Then he saw Bigfoot over his car hood. This time, Jordan exits the car and looks around. He tries to flag down passing cars, but no one stops to help. Now convinced he's crazy, Williams returned to the car and noticed a shadow cross behind it. After 7 hours in the cold, though, and exhausted, he fell asleep. Then, with the car shaking, he woke up. He sat up quickly and saw the Bigfoot looking into the car. Then it quickly disappeared. This time, he heard vocalizations near the center divider. He felt something, but couldn't explain it. Then he heard front end noises. Williams described it as a low gibberish. Williams heard Bigfoot whispering outside his car. He fought to stay awake, but he knew he fell asleep because a highway patrol officer was poking him with a flashlight through the open window to see if he was alive. He told his wife what happened at home. They looked at the car because he wanted proof Bigfoot was there. Williams found huge palm and fingerprints on his SUV windows. He wasn't hallucinating. A Sasquatch had visited him. But Jordan isn't alone. In 2013, a comment left by somebody going by the name of Paco on the Sasquatch Investigations website reads,
For over 30 years, I've been interested in Bigfoot stories, legends, sighting, television programs, research organizations, and etc. And I've followed some sighting reports in the Colorado state, as recently as the one in Estes Park, Colorado. And I've never told anyone for fear as being labeled as a wacko, since I was still in the US Army at the time of my sighting. It was about October of 1982 when I first saw what I truly believe Bigfoot. I was hunting bear and elk in the Battle Mountain area of Medicine Bow Forest, Wyoming, northeast of Craig, Colorado, and southeast of Rawlins, Wyoming. I was stationed in Cheyenne, Wyoming, as an army recruiter at the time. At first I smelled an awful stench, unlike I've ever smelled before. The forest was dark, even though it was nearly noon. I was on a knoll, overlooking some area down below. I glanced in the forest and saw a creature, unlike I have ever seen before. I estimated he was about a good 7 feet tall, hairy, dark brown, and what I remember the most was his skull staring at me. I could feel him, or her, looking right through me. His eyes gave me the goosebumps, and even though I was a combat vet and an excellent shot with my rifle, I still decided to evacuate the area. If I wanted to, I could have shot him, but decided not to. I was a high-ranking sergeant in the army at the time. If I had reported this, it might have affected my promotion status. I have since retired from the army in 1989.
Was what John said really a hoax? If it wasn't for one person, this encounter likely would never have seen the light of day, let alone be spoken about on this podcast. Tom Powell, a member of the BFRO, was unhappy with the hoax conclusion Doug gave to the 1999 Battle Mountain encounter and broke off from the organization, setting off on a solo mission to prove that Bigfoot was indeed there on August 7th and was injured and sent away in the back of an unmarked ambulance. But Tom's biggest question was, where is the injured creature now?